This meeting is being held in conformance with the Sunshine Law. Notice of time, date, and place has been furnished to the Bergen Record and the Ridgewood News. Notice has also been posted on the bulletin board of our administration building. Would the clerk kindly take the roll?
Mayor Giordano.
Here.
Mr. Bjork.
Here.
Mr. Orvitz.
Here.
Mr. Schatz.
Here.
Mr. Shalera.
Here.
Mrs. Sherman. Here.
Everyone kindly rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Let us please have a moment of silence for all our Waldeck veterans and all our veterans across our country who have given the ultimate sacrifice to keep us free and allowing us to have meetings like we are having tonight. Clerk, kindly do the prayer.
We thank you for everyone gathered here now. Thank you that you know each of us by name and have caused us to walk with you. We say that we are dependent on you and our trust is in you completely. As we surrender ourselves in adoration, we ask that you would come by your Holy Spirit and inspire our hearts today. Come fill our lives with your love, fill our conversations with your grace and truth, fill this meeting with your presence. We ask this for your glory and praise. Amen.
Amen.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for coming out tonight. I hope you're enjoying your summer so far. Under my report, just a couple of items. The summer usually is slow for us. We don't have that many events that we attend or we talk about, but there's a couple that I would like to discuss. First of all, I would like to thank the members of the council who came out on Saturday to honor Police Officer Christopher Goodell. It was the 7th anniversary of his death. Even though it's 7 years, still it hurts the family and it hurts the borough. He was a great officer, and he did all he could to protect and serve us. Also, tonight we were supposed to honor the young person who did a rescue at the pool, but unfortunately that person's on vacation, and we didn't want that person to come back just for this. So once they are back into the borough, we'll honor that person. Like everyone knows, I guess, during this weekend there was many cars that were broken into at the pool. The police are still looking into it. The police are watching everything and keeping an eye on everything. And as soon as the person or the people who did this damage are caught, the police, as they always do, will make sure that the right justice is given to them. I might have missed other stuff, but I will leave it for everybody else to talk about. Financial administrative, before I forget, I'm sorry. Not that I want to push this meeting to go very fast, but tonight's our administrator's birthday, and his wife wants him home. So happy birthday, Patrick.
I know she didn't say that.
And
Yeah, sure.
if you make the meeting long, she'll be mad. If you make the meeting longer, she'll probably be happy. But happy birthday, Patrick. Financial and Administrative Committee, Mr. Shalero.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to let everybody know that this past summer, our auditor, Lurch Vinci Higgins, has been working on preparation of our 2020 year-end audit. And they've been in-house with several of their employees collecting information, reports, and data. They've completed their information gathering, and they're working on the actual preparation of the audit. We may get it by the end of this month. We'll keep, of course, the mayor and council apprised, and then we could talk about next steps once we have the hard copy. I guess we should have it at least by next meeting, if not the end of the month. So we'll have that to talk about in August. Just a reminder to everyone on the council, and also in case the audience sees us with paper up here, we have a voucher system to pay our bills in the borough. Each voucher requires 3 signatures, so just a reminder to everybody to get their vouchers to me before the end of the meeting so that I could have a look at them as well. I appreciate that. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Fire and Police Protection Committee, Mr. Orvitz.
Thank you, Mayor. No report tonight.
Thank you very much. Patrick Lang, thanks you also. Public Safety Committee, Mr. Schatz.
Actually, there wasn't as many. I didn't have as many meetings this month. I missed 1 or 2 of them for vacation. But I did go to the ambulance meeting last night, and just wanted to state that they gave me the monthly run report for June, and it was 35 runs for for the town during that time, and then covered most of them. The other thing I just want to mention is during the environmental committee meeting, which we actually didn't have last week, but we had the week before that, I wanted to present to the council, which I'm going to hand to the administrator. They've come up with an anti-idling map that they would like to get signs put up in the public areas. And I'm going to submit it to Patrick so he can send it out to you guys to take a look at it, see if you'll approve it. They're also looking into composting and setting up they set up a composting group, and they're going to be having some events, I guess, to try and look forward to that and also sponsor that kind of situation. And also looking into ink recycling, which they've talked to our clerk about, and everybody seemed to think that was a good idea, but we'll make sure that the council agrees with it before they go and do it. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Recreation and Health Committee, Mrs. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Emily Rice Playground slide was damaged from the last storm we had. It was removed and it will be replaced. The insurance company came out and investigated, and the slide was removed and it will be replaced. Also, there was a fence at the park that was damaged by water, so we'll be looking to make the repairs there. We sent out in the last borough email a request for people to join the beautification committee. We're looking for volunteers interested in enhancing our landscapes, our plantings, community gardens, streetscape improvements, and planting in the parks. So we've already had some people respond to that, and the mayor and council will be working with the environmental committee on that. So we're very excited to be moving forward on this a little bit. I stopped by the pool several times, including today. They have new umbrellas for the lifeguards. They were very happy with them. They're bright red and they look fantastic next to all the other colored umbrellas that are out, the awnings. So good job on that, Mr. Administrator. Thank you. And the lifeguards are wearing their new bathing suits that were purchased for them this year, and they look great. They're all in their nice bright red bathing suits, and they're very happy with them. A lot of people are going to the pool today. They were over 600 people who were there, and I touched the water. It was nice and warm today. So let's see, tomorrow night under recreation, there's a concert, Jersey Sound, at 7 p.m. at Borough Park. It's a nostalgia band playing oldies, classic rock, Motown, R&B, so it should be a fun evening. We're just hoping that the rain holds off so we don't have to cancel it. Decision will be made at 2 o'clock if we have to cancel it, and I guess we'll be sending out a blast or something if it was canceled. Last night I attended the WAFA meeting, Waldeck Access for All, where we discussed the improvements that are going to be made at Ted Bell Park. We discussed the referendum that was adopted at the school. Some of the people had some questions about the referendum, and a few of the members were able to answer those questions because they were on the committee or they're on the board. They're looking to form subcommittees to work on different projects. And they're looking for options to promote their organization and promote more access for residents. The next meeting will take place on 10/18, and also they have some jar openers in Borough Hall that people can stop in and pick them up, and they could find out some information about Access for All. Their information is also on the borough website. Just a couple more things, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Junior Police Academy graduation on July 2nd. It was a wonderful, happy occasion, the recruits, I never saw children recite the Pledge of Allegiance in such a way that it gave me chills. They were very excited to be there, and it seemed like they had a wonderful time. The mayor gave a good speech, shook the hand of one of the recruits, and it was very lovely. So I congratulate our Waldwick Police Department because they put a lot of work into it, and it certainly paid off. The children were very happy. And then, just to expand a little bit on your mention of the Christopher Goodell memorial service that took place on Saturday. As you said, it's his 7th year of Chris being killed in the line of duty. There were bicycle riders who were police officers from Waldwick, Waldwick, Allendale, Saddle River, Upper Saddle River, and a few other agencies, along with Councilman Bjork, who I'm sure I'll talk about it later. They were escorted by police vehicles from the police academy in Mawa, and they passed through several towns, and those officers in those towns came out and helped to block the traffic and show their support for these officers who were riding. Mr. Goodell, father of Christopher, pulled his truck out and had Chris's photo in the back. I'm sure you've all seen the yellow and white pickup truck that him and Chris restored, and he drove it along with the riders. There was also members from the Bergen County Police Pipe and Drum Band there, pipers and a snare drum, and they were playing songs, including the Marine Corps hymn, because Chris was a member of that. And it was a absolutely wonderful, moving ceremony, and another proud moment for Waldwick and for the Waldwick Police Department, and I was very grateful to be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one more thing, when Terry talked about shaking hands, let me explain a little bit about that. That Monday, before they graduated on Friday, the police department brought in all the young recruits here, and it was a question and answer for me. And they asked me questions about the town, asked me questions about myself, and one of these young boys came up to me and says, "Could I shake your hand?" And I said, "Sure." And he shook my hand and he said, "I'm never going to wash it." So what happened was, at the graduation of them, he was there in the front row, or the second row, and I went up to him and said to him, "Could I shake your hand?" And I did, and I said to him, "Now I'm not going to wash my hand." So it was a little bit of a humor between him and I think it was good. It made the young boys and girls realize that, you know, police officers and elected officials and adults, we're all here together. And I think that was very good. Mrs. McNamara is not here. She might be coming. If she does come, we'll make a report when she comes in. If not, then she'll report at the next meeting. Building and Grounds Committee, Mr. Bjork.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll report on some of the construction activities going on in town. Well 6, as you may know, is well underway, no pun intended, but I guess we got the final bits of parts and pieces. And although the construction will be complete shortly, then we have to go through some sanitizing, and testing of the water, and then we'll be up and running. We'll start working on the rest of the wells as well. Tennis courts are well underway as well. I don't know if anybody's been down there to see the stripping of the top course, and we're getting ready to put pickleball in as well. Future plans are to possibly move the Northwest Bergen Regional Health Center people up here across the hall as we make more room for storage, possibly. We've also, Terry already mentioned about the slide getting hit with a tree limb at Emily Rice Park. There are a bunch of policy votes that involve the buildings and grounds, which we'll talk about later on. We are looking to put up some affordable housing, possibly off of Franklin Turnpike. You may have heard us talk about a new ordinance we introduced a while back to allow ramps to be put in the front yards, and the Lions Club just completed that ramp. Unfortunately, it's going to have to be brought back down due to the passing of the user, just unfortunately a couple of weeks after us getting it done. But we'll be talking with Access for All if they have any needs for ramps as we continue to try to store them in limited space behind the shooting range when things like that happen. And Terry definitely covered the Christopher Goodell event in much more depth than I would have. I unfortunately had to leave as soon as we got there, but I did ride with the officers. It was a good time. Got to meet the family. We stopped at the grave site for a few minutes before we got into town. Fixed a flat tire in Oakland for one of the officers, and it was nice. It was a good event, and I think the family appreciated it. They may actually try to do it yearly now, it sounds like. The reason they did this one is because the ride from New York City to Washington, D.C. was canceled due to the COVID, so I think they may try to do this each year. So I'm going to try to recruit Mr. Don over there next year to get on his bike with me. So everybody's like 30 years old and 28 years old, so but we hung in there. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you. Borough Administrator?
No report, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Our Borough Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things. The Board of Commissioners approved a vote-by-mail box for Waldwick at their last meeting. The box will need to have 24/7 security, and it needs to be 100 feet from the entrance to the police department. I spoke with Patrick as well as the police department. We measured out 107 feet from the entrance of the police department, so it's kind of in that last island over by the police department. The camera is focused, not solely on it, but we'll have 24/7 security. So they will start installing that in August. We don't need to do anything else but take the site. So we did that, and they're happy with it, and that'll happen sometime in August. I will start to work on the 2022 calendar. The advertisement letters are going out under the mayor's signature. We did receive positive feedback from the residents with regards to the new format. We'll kind of stick with that, update where we need to, update some photos, and I'll work with the mayor on the new cover for 2022. That's all.
Thank you. Grant Administrator Matthew?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Our Borough Attorney Craig?
Thank you, Mayor. No report.
Thank you. We're going to be going into close after this meeting? And there will be a decision made, so if you just want to stay for the decision, how long do you think we'll be in there, Mr. Attorney?
I would say an hour. Yeah.
No. Okay, thank you very much. Consent resolutions and resolutions of the governing body.
Be it resolved that the following resolutions herewith listed by consent, having been considered by the governing body of the Borough of Waldwick, are hereby passed and approved. 2021-225, approval of consent. 2021-226, approval of minutes, regular meeting, June 22nd, 2021. Policy votes A. Abram Alea requests to use Pavilion A on August 8th from 12 to dusk for a running club party with alcoholic beverages being served. B. Paul Wakarski requests to use Pavilion A on September 5th from 9 a.m. to dusk for a graduation party with alcoholic beverages being served. C. Lauren McGuire requests to use Pavilion A on September 18th from 11 to 4 for a birthday party with alcoholic beverages being served. D. The Waldwick Lions Club requests permission to sponsor a free public concert at the Oval on Sunday, October 3rd, 2021 at 4 p.m. E. Warriors boys under 12 request to use the Veterans Field on Tuesdays 4:15 to 5:45, Thursdays 6 to 7:30, and Thursdays 4:15 to 5:45 on the dates listed. F. Waldwick Chamber of Commerce requests to turn the town teal for the month of September for Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. And G. Accept the resignation of crossing guard Patricia Steele. 2021-227, governing body certification of compliance with the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's enforcement guidance on the consideration of arrest and conviction records and employment decisions under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. 2021-228, authorization for the execution of an application for the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, Treatment Works approval for Pat Mark Management Group, LLC, 1 Franklin Turnpike, Block 18.01, Lot 17. 2021-229, authorized execution of a developers agreement for Pat Mark Management Group, LLC. 2021-230, authorizing annual appointment of the municipal representatives to the Bergen County Community Development Regional Committee for the fiscal year 2021-2022. 2021-231, authorize renewal of membership in the Bergen County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. 2021-232, award non-fair and open contract to Rybrand Well Drilling for motor repairs for Well 5 in the amount of $12,320. 2021-233, award a non-fair and open contract to Neil Systems Incorporated for chlorine pump repair in the amount of $4,027.80. 2021-234, award a non-fair and open contract to La Forza Construction LLC for ADA curb ramp upgrades in the amount of $37,635. 2021-235, award non-fair and open professional service contract to Boswell Engineering for Phase 1 rehabilitation of Ted Bell Park in the amount of $37,950. 2021-236, authorize advertisement and receipt of bids for the public safety building exterior insulation improvements project. 2021-237, approval of special pay. 2021-238, appointment of head swim coach. 2021-239, authorized cancellation of property taxes for disabled veterans goings. 2021-240, refund tax overpayment block 134.02, lot 19. 2021-241, refund tax title lien 19-00621, block 145, lot 55. And 2021-242, payment of vouchers. Mayor, I would like to remove 2021-241, as I just learned late this morning that the check was not received from the
Okay.
CFO. So 241 will be removed.
Do we have a motion and a second to accept this, except for 2021-241?
Mayor, I was looking to pull 237 for further discussion if possible among the council members.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion by Don, second by Greg. Anyone on the question? Don?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to just give a brief explanation of 2021-231, renewal of membership in the Bergen County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. For those that attend our meetings, you'll occasionally hear me report on our participation in the JIF. The Joint Insurance Fund is basically an insurance cooperative that we're members of for our property and casualty and our workers' comp. So we, every couple of years, our membership is due for renewal, and this is one of those years. So this will take effect. We're members through this year. This is for the years followed, 2022, 2023. And then we're good for a couple more years. They do a great job supporting us. Very professionally run. For those who may not be aware, the Joint Insurance Fund, it was formed about 35 years ago. Prior to that, municipalities had to purchase its insurance on the open market, which got to be very expensive at times. So this has been a great partner for our community, and we highly recommend continuance.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, Mayor, as I mentioned, there's a few of these that fall into both kind of recreation with Terry as well as the construction. 232 is going to basically repair a well pump that's not working properly. They'll put in a temporary pump while they pull it out and repair it. We've also got chlorine pump repairs going on at the pool and some ADA curb compliance around town. And I think this will make a lot of people happy. We've got Boswell Engineering starting on the drawings for the Ted Bell Park. And then finally, we're getting ready to put out to bid the insulation improvements over at the public safety building, which Patrick's been working on with the architects and engineers recently. And he did a nice review of the drawings, which I'd like to see. And I didn't even read what you had done. You found the same thing I did after I looked at it again because I was in a rush. But and that'll make sure that the bids come in accurately and hopefully on budget. And Craig, am I going to have to recuse myself from the free public concert thing for the Lions Club, or does it not really matter? D up above? No? Okay. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? In regards to the concert, is there any fees incurring the Lions Club for having this event? Will we be picking up the tab on every security and? And we have
We'd have to
concert.
discuss with the Lions Club what fees there would be, but I'm not aware of
I
any.
think my understanding was that the club was trying to basically spring for the whole thing for
Yeah.
the benefit of the town.
Yeah.
But
So that they're going to pay for police and
I believe so.
DPW?
I can double check, but you should maybe double check what Ray thinks the
Sure.
chair, but
Yeah.
that's kind of
I
what I
will.
recall.
Yeah, okay, great.
I will.
Good, we'll work something out with them.
Yep.
Anyone else? Would the clerk kindly take the roll?
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Mr. Orbitz?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Shalero?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Okay. we're up
Okay,
to
and now with the,
No, 237 for a separate vote. She wants to discuss 237.
yeah, no, I'm just saying it now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With the, Greg, you want to start with? what you
Yeah,
wanted to do?
you know, first of all, I'll apologize if I missed some of the process on this. I'm not so sure I did, but this has to deal with, I guess we'll call it the alleged miscompensation of many, many employees in town that Patrick believes has occurred, and, you know, he's done a lot of work on it, and he's tried to present it in a meaningful manner. Quite frankly, I've struggled with understanding it, and I didn't necessarily agree with it. I reached out to some of the other council members, and really none of the other council members could explain it clearly to me, and I think it might merit some more discussion. I had suggested that maybe the Department of Labor take a look at it. I don't know if there's a reluctance to do that, but if they say it's okay and we've made a mistake, let's correct it. If indeed we do determine that we have undercompensated some employees through some of our accounting methods, then I believe that we should talk about how we're going to rectify that. How are we going to compensate those people? I don't know if we ever resolved that. We talked about, well, let's go back in time and give them the money that they would have made back then, or would we do it in 2021 dollars? We also got a nice detailed spreadsheet, which I first saw tonight, which I'd like to study a little closer. We had looked at the PowerPoint in the past, and I like the way the spreadsheet's all set up. It shows how many days each person has, the calculation, and maybe I can talk to Patrick further about, you know, looking at an actual pay stub so I can wrap my mind around it. Basically, I guess the concept is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you get a W-2 at the end of the year, certain people didn't have as much money in that W-2 as they thought they should have. But my contention is that it's short because sometimes the pay period ends near the end of the year, maybe on a Friday, December 28th. So there's a few days there that you're not paid, but I think you get compensated for that in your first paycheck in the following calendar year. And until I'm convinced otherwise, I really wasn't comfortable with this. And it's expensive. It's about $100,000 of outlay to these employees, plus there's the employer expenses, which I don't believe are in that calculation. So those are my concerns, and I would hope that we're not in any rush to do this. I think it's prudent for the council members to sit and have it presented and talk amongst ourselves, especially now that we can meet face to face. Thank you.
Well, Patrick, do you want to start this? I mean, we've talked about it already, and I think you already spoke to everybody about this. And didn't the council have an opportunity to talk about all this? But Don, you're in finance.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I was going to, kind of suggest the same thing, and I did talk to Greg last week, and I did say some of that, and I did spend some time this weekend and today looking over what we had done. When I spoke with Patrick earlier, it was like, yeah, we started this conversation a year ago, so I think also it may seem like it was a lot of disjointed conversations, but I kind of felt like we did kind of hash through this. I think Patrick gave us a good presentation. As I looked through it again, it reminded me about the details of the situation, but I also recollected that we agreed that there was a problem that needed to be fixed. And then the second issue was, how do we fix it? And then we polled the council on how everybody felt we should address it in terms of what pay scale you use. And it was agreed upon that we would use current pay. So my impression and my feelings, especially when I went back and looked over the reports and things we received, was that we had answered a lot of those questions, and I was comfortable with it.
And I think also the money that is going out, there's money already allocated in our budget, correct?
It was budgeted for in 2021.
I mean, it's up to you, it's up to the council. I mean, we went through this already. If you want to talk about it again and table it again, that's fine, but the thing is, we already spoke to the people, and they already know what we're doing, because that's what our idea was, and that's what we told our administrator to do. Yes, Paul?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I've talked to the administrator today a little bit about it, too. I didn't have a problem with the fact that we found a problem and we had to try and fix it. I don't have a problem with that. One thing that I had asked, I don't remember us actually discussing all three of them unless we did it individually. But I don't remember us actually discussing it up here or discussing it in closing or anything like that. As far as making decisions on the three-way, Patrick had come with three different options as to how to make this money up. One of the things that I heard today was that we actually discussed this, and the amount of monies was in 2020, and then now we're doing it with the 2021 salaries. Did we account for that bump, because it is another, what was it, $12,000 roughly for 2021 salaries as opposed to 20 salaries? Did we account for that in our budget this year?
Yeah, we have sufficient funds to cover this expense, yes. It's coming from an accumulated absence trust, which is a fund set up by the borough for paying unexpected salary expenses, typically when an employee retires. That amount, that fund has enough money to cover this expense, as well as leaving the borough in a good position to pay out any other similar expenses from retirements that we could incur this year.
Let me also point out the fact that we didn't do anything wrong. We did it the way, I think we did it the right way we're doing it. We were just dealing with the situation as the person left or retired. But now we're trying to clear the whole thing up right away so that we have to deal with it whenever a person leaves or retires from the borough. Is that correct?
Mostly correct. I think that the issue historically had been that there was an underpayment in an employee's first year, or at least, I should say, a potential for underpayment in an employee's first year, and a potential for overpayment in an employee's final year. Those underpayment and overpayment typically balanced each other out to a great extent. The issue was always in the first year underpayment, and when the borough 2 years ago switched, or last year switched from a biweekly pay to a semi-monthly pay, it's a more accurate form of payment in the final year, so the employee no longer has an opportunity to have a potential overpayment in their final year. So that's boiled down the cause of this back pay calculation. And we had discussed in closed session last year what the appropriate multiplier was, because you determine that for the benefit of the public, if you determine that an amount is owed an employee from their first year of employment, you have to decide, okay, if it was based off a number of days' work that were not compensated. If the employee was hired in 2000 and now it's 2021, do you pay them at their 2000 rate, understanding that 21 years have gone by? Do you accelerate that a multiplier of, let's say, an average rate of return in an investment account, or do you multiply that by their average rate of pay? The council, in a straw poll, so not formal, but my recollection is it was done in a straw poll, the council had supported using an employee's current rate of pay. And you had referenced the increase slightly this year over what was discussed last year, and you are correct that when we discussed last year, the figure was lower, and the majority of the increase is due to us last year using 2020 pay rates, and this year using 2021 pay rates, and obviously the 2021 pay is generally higher than the 2020 pay. And to an issue raised by Councilman York, the spreadsheet that you received does include the employer contributions that are required in the total. So you see that the subtotal is $98,285. There's employer contributions of $7,518, which gives you the total pay for $105,803.93.
So if we had to pay this out, we wouldn't have to pay workers' comp premiums on these hours, or how does that work?
No.
And how do you know that? I'm just asking not to be.
CFO tells me.
The CFO.
Yeah, I mean, I take the CFO at her word on that, because that's what she does, the
Right.
payroll. I mean, her and I work together on this, but when it comes to payroll, that's what she's discussed, and that's been confirmed by our auditor.
And that was, sorry I didn't mention this, but we did have a borough auditor look at this, but I've never seen their report. We also say that Labor Council told us, but I haven't seen anything that they put in writing to us.
It was
And-
shared with you, and I'd be happy to share it.
Yeah, and then the fact that Colleen believes that we don't have to pay workers' comp, I don't know what the reluctance is to talk to the Department of Labor, make sure we get this right. Let's get it right. If we made a mistake, or when we change, if it was just a snapshot in time when we changed our policy from every 2 weeks to twice a month. It just doesn't sit with me. I do payroll for 40 years in my own company, and there's a lot of private companies that have done this, and I've never heard of this before, and not one person could really just explain it to me to my satisfaction. And it just seems like we always want to do the right thing. Let's make sure we go in front of the JIF if we're going to try to do this. What's the reluctance to make sure we've got this right and put it to bed once and for all? I don't think we're in any rush to get it done this week, and I think there's enough questions that merit a little bit further look, at least in my opinion.
The only 2 points I would point out is that is, let's get it done. I don't want to wait
Right.
from 2020 to 2021, but let's get it done. Let's get it done and decide. We're not going to decide tonight, we can decide next month. Let's get it done,
Well,
get them the money.
There's a motion tonight to do it tonight. So either you have to vote yes or you vote no. Because this is not the first time we've been talking about this. So, I mean, if you do not want to make the administrator go ahead and pay out, you vote no. If you want the administrator to pay out, you vote yes. Am I correct? Anyone else have a question with this?
Yeah, I would just add that, I think what made this kind of a difficult, this is not an easy topic, and we did a lot of this virtually, so we didn't really have a face-to-face, and it could be, we hashed it out and talked it through, and then you get off the phone and had a couple more questions. Then by the next meeting, you forgot those questions because we moved on to a new aspect of this. So, I can understand, where there might have been some confusion. But, like I said, I looked through the material again, and I'm satisfied with it. So I'm okay with moving forward.
Well, Patrick you brought out a good point. Maybe some of our residents in the audience are a little confused with what's going on. So Patrick's going to explain to you what this is all about.
Thank you, Mayor. In a very condensed version, and this is not unique to the Borough of Waldwick. We're not the only ones that have been in this situation. We're not the only ones who have had to solve for this situation. In fact, our CFO solved for this at her previous employer, and she solved for it in the exact same way that we're looking to solve for it today. Our auditor and our labor council is also aware of other municipalities that are in the same position and have solved for it in the same way. So we're not, the Borough of Waldwick isn't going out on a limb and doing anything radical, but what is being proposed is to compensate employees for what was an underpayment in their first year of employment. And the reason for that underpayment is because of how the borough calculates pay for salaried employees. And we calculate pay for salaried employees in the simplest way possible, and that creates some mathematical errors. And I'll use myself as an example. I started with the borough on February 25th of 2019. And when I was hired, I started on a Monday, and I believe it was at the first day of what then was a 2-week pay period. How the borough determines my 2-week pay is to take my salary, divide it by the number of pays in a year, and pay me that out every other week for the remainder of the year. That rate could change. Let's say you're in a payroll in a year where there happens to be 27 pays. Employees are typically given an option of going 3 weeks between pay or getting their salary divided by 27 and receiving that pay 27 times in a year. Again, typical of payroll, especially municipal payroll. But what happens is I start February 25th, and my last payroll in the year, which was December 20th of 2019, I've been then compensated a 2-week amount for my employment for the weeks beginning on February 25th of 2019, with my final payday being December 20th of 2019, right? Brings you into the next year. Common thought is that I'm compensated for the work days between December 20th of that year and the first pay in the next year by the first pay in the next year. Problem is, in the next year, we switched to a semi-monthly pay system. And now, let's say I decide to retire on December 31st of that following year, which is 2020. Now we're in a semi-monthly pay. And so if I decide to retire on December 31st, on that day when I retire and I receive my paycheck, I'm made whole for that year. If I'm a $50,000 employee in 2020, I get a W-2 that says $50,000. So now I've been paid $50,000 for the full year that I work, retired on December 31st, and I've been paid in 2019 an appropriate biweekly amount for every day up to my last payday, December 20th. That means there's a balance of days between December 20th and December 31st that I am not compensated for. In my case, that's 7 days. There were 7 work days in that period. So what we're asking for is the mayor and council to approve pay for all employees in their first year of employment. And it is the amount of days worked after their final pay in their first year multiplied by their current daily rate. And again, the daily rate of pay, we tell employees what their salary is, but we kind of have to back into that. We take your annual salary and we divide it by the number of pay days in a year, typically 260, sometimes 261, 262. So for the calculations that Councilman Bjork had referenced, we show, and we've gone back for every employee, some of them going back to the early 80s. We went back to original pay stubs, which are documents that the borough is required to keep forever, so fortunately we have them. We go back to every pay stub for that employee. We look to see what the final day of the of pay in an employee's first year. We see how many work days are after that day, and we multiply it by their current daily rate. To Councilman Schatz's point, there's a decision to be made by the mayor and council as to what multiplier they want to use. So now we know how many days are owed to each employee. Do we want to multiply that day by their rate of pay in their first year, which for an employee who started in 1982 might be, $16,000? Do we want to multiply it by their pay in their first year, that's $16,000, advanced by a number being like, let's say it's a average return rate in an investment account, or you want to use an S&P 500 rate, or do you want to pretend like you invested in Google and have a 200% rate of return? If I was an employee and I had given the option, I would have invested all my money in Google. So that's the second option. The third being, do you want to multiply it by the employee's current daily rate of pay? It hadn't been decided formally, so that decision is still to be made by the mayor and council. But in a closed session with the mayor and council, when this discussion was had, the majority of council that was present in an informal vote decided to use a multiplier of the employee's current daily rate. And that's why it had increased from when we discussed in 2020 to 2021, because obviously the employee's daily rate of pay for the majority of employees has increased in that time. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else on the council have any comment? Yes.
Patrick, I appreciate that example, and that's about the only part of it that I'm kind of on board with. When we change from paying every 2 weeks to paying twice a month, I can see the disparity there. Like if you stopped working, your last paycheck was say December 26th, and then all of a sudden next year we're going to pay you from January 1st to January 15th. You got shortchanged that one little snapshot in time. But the guy that was hired in 1991, he's up to snuff all the way to that snapshot in time last year or 2019 when we changed. And I just don't follow the logic there. And I still don't understand why we can't have an independent entity take a look at it, like the Department of Labor, and make sure we've got it right. I want you to be compensated. I'm not trying to say nobody should get any money, but I just don't wrap my mind around the rest of it. And nobody else here has been able to say, Greg, don't you get it? Look at here, here, and here. It's just like, well, it's a lot to understand, and I think it's right, and I trust my CEO, which we do, and I trust that maybe Park Ridge did it right, and maybe we're glad that Craig went and spoke to his accounting department, his law firm, but, it just doesn't sit well with me until we get it from the horse's mouth.
Anyone else?
If I can add, the switch to the 24 to 26 for the employee that was from 1991, that doesn't make the difference, because in that second year for the employee, if they were still in a 26-week pay, then it would 26 pay periods per year. It would simply be divided by that 26. So let's say the pay period was January 1st to January 13th. It would be 1/26 for those years. So those dates of December 22nd to the 31st is still owed regardless if it's a 24 pays or 26 pays. It's the same principle.
Like, so say 1991, it ended on the 22nd of December. Don't you think their first paycheck in 1992 compensated them for that snapshot in time?
No, because the first pay in the second year is still just that pay period from January 1st to the pay date.
No, it's not 1992 it isn't. It's still that 2-week period. It's still going back to December 23rd to say January 6th or something like that.
I think that's a fair question, and it's a fair question because obviously the borough had in my opinion, gotten it wrong for a number of years. But the math of what we laid out for the mayor and council in the PowerPoint that was presented to you and to all the employees show that that just doesn't add up. I mean, it's dollars and cents, X's and O's. When you get to the end of it, an employee is not appropriately, fully compensated for that amount. I agree with you that, yes, generally, there's an assumption that an employee, the balance of days after their first year is made up for in the second year, and then the balance of days after their second year is made up for in their third year, and so on until the employee's final year. What the PowerPoint presentation that we presented for the mayor and council and the employees looks at the exact amount, and it's not just a conceptual idea and this should wash out. It's the exact amount of underpayment in the employee's first year versus the exact amount of overpayment in an employee's final year, and do those dollar amounts offset. The math of it, not the conceptual, I think I'm getting paid the right amount, but the math of it just doesn't show that the employee is fully compensated. And if there's a question on the math, because listen, especially as the borough administrator, I'd hate to pay out any more money than is appropriately owed to any employee. But I understand that your concern is that you haven't been satisfactorily explained the problem. My frustration would just be no one showed me or the CFO where the math of our
I
calculations
try to
is
answer
wrong.
that. I mean, like, again, you said that you've shown the underpayment in the first year, but you
Yeah.
haven't shown the overpayment in the
Yeah.
second year.
I'll
Because if you look at it that way, you're saying, well, wait a minute, I got paid for 4 days last year in year 2.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah. And I can, there's two options here. For the benefit of the public and the council, I can continue the exchange if you'd like. Or if the mayor should choose, you can take a vote on it. I don't want to
Yeah,
continue
I
if the
don't
mayor
think it's worth
chooses not.
discussing anymore,
Well, we've been talking about this for a while now, and I think, as I said before, we'll get a motion in a second, and then we'll vote to accept this as the pay. Is that all right with everyone? Everyone's finished with the discussion? Okay, do I have a motion and a second? Motion
make
by
the
Don, second by Terry. Would the clerk kindly take the roll? Yes is to approve the special pay, no is not to approve it.
Mr. Bjork?
No.
Mr. Orbitz?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Shalero?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
And you'll go ahead and do what you have to do.
Yes, this amount will be paid out to the employees in the July 31st payroll.
And they'll be notified of the decision of the council.
Yes, they will.
Okay, we have no public hearings. Introduction of ordinances. Would the clerk kindly read ordinance number 2021-21 by title?
Ordinance number 2021-21, an ordinance amending Chapter 95B Wildlife Feeding, adding Chapter 95B Section 4 White-tailed deer, amending Chapter 95B Sections 4 Enforcement, 5 Violation and penalties, 6 Severability, and 7 Effective date.
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second from the council?
So moved.
Motion by Joe, second by, we'll give it to Terry again. On the question, what this was is a couple of, while back, we had some residents that were concerned about the feeding of wildlife, with deer especially in our borough. We did have a ordinance stated that you cannot feed deer on town property, but we did not have an ordinance stating that you can't feed them on your own property. So what this is doing is we're tweaking the ordinance or adding to the one we already have, stating that you are no longer allowed to feed deer on your property, town property, and if you do so, there will be penalties that will be given to you.
On the
Anyone
question?
else?
If you feed another animal and the deer happen to eat what you're feeding another animal, will you be held responsible?
Yes, they'll hang you.
Okay.
Yes, they will. Anyone else?
So, first a question for our administrators. So we're introducing these tonight. We're going to have a public hearing at our August meeting?
Yes.
So, these are kind of unusual ordinances for us. And, we've been talking about feeding deer and deer issues for quite some time, and the second one we'll talk about in a minute. But it'd be really interesting if residents can take a look at this and really, if you can't come to a meeting to give your feedback, contact one of us, some of us, and tell us what you think. Because, there are some people who think it's okay to feed the deer.
Right.
And, well, I unintentionally feed the deer every year when I plant a garden. So, and I think there's lots of people like me as well. But, you know, I think the gist of this and what I think we're trying to do is, you know, the deer population just continues to explode. No one refutes that. You know, they contribute to a lot of bad things. I mean, they're really cute when they're prancing through your yard or through the woods and they're on their way. But they do cause a lot of damage in terms of our personal property. They're the cause of a lot of automobile accidents and other problems. So, you know, I don't know that this is going to address all those things, but I think at least perhaps make a statement that we're trying to do something, and maybe the state or other leaders in government above us will take a look at this and try and figure out a more permanent solution, a more meaningful solution, but I think this is a start.
And the reason why these were presented to us is I've been receiving a lot of phone calls from residents and emails about the situation. And some of us responded, some didn't respond, and then we have residents saying that nothing was done. That's why at the last meeting, I asked the council if it's all right if we set this up and have the administrator review it with the attorney and come up with a ordinance to protect everything. I mean, you know, residents ask, we have to try our best to accommodate the residents. Anyone else? Clerk, kindly take the roll.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Mrs. McNamara?
Yes.
Mr. Orvitz?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Shalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Would the clerk kindly read ordinance number 2021-22 by title?
Ordinance number 2021-22, an ordinance amending Chapter 95, creates noxious, amending Chapter Title, amending Section 1, noxious growth deemed nuisance, amending Section 2, causing or permitting brushweed or debris to collect, amending Section 3, removal of brushweed or debris required upon notice, amending Section 4, noncompliance procedures, collection of costs incurred by the borough, amending Section 5, violations and penalties, and amending Section 6, costs to be additional to penalties.
Do we have a motion and a second? Motion by Mr. Schatz, second by Mr. Orvitz on the question. This was another example of a resident calling us and asking us about bamboo grown wild on properties. So what we're doing now is we're saying that if you have your bamboo on the property, you have to maintain it, and you have to take care of it. If it's a nuisance to your neighbor, you have to remove it or trim it. If you are going to plant bamboo, you have to make sure it's 10 feet away from the property line. And if you do not abide by this, then there will also be violations and penalties. Anyone else? Yes.
And you know, when we've talked about this over the past year, we did look at other towns around the area, around the state, in regard to what they've done in regard to bamboo. It does seem to be a growing trend to try and manage this. So again, I'd encourage the residents to take a look at what other towns have done. It's a simple Google search, and see what's been happening and why. It seems as though there's been quite a growth in the interest of using bamboo as a, you know, property divider of some sort. It grows very fast apparently, but it's difficult to control. So when you read about it or see or learn more about it, it'll be interesting. So again, it'd be great if the residents could take a look at these things and seriously let us know what your thinking is.
Yes. Anyone else? Okay, a motion and a second was in order to pass this ordinance on first reading and that the clerk be advertising it in local legal newspapers required by law, setting a public hearing 2 weeks from tonight's meeting at 7:30 p.m. as soon as thereafter as the matter may be reached. We had the motion and the second. Clerk takes the roll.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Mrs. McNamara?
Yes.
Mr. Orvitz?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Shalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Also, at the first one, ordinance number 2021-21, I forgot to read this statement, and I'll read it now. A motion and a second is in order, which we did, to pass this ordinance on first reading and that it be advertised in local legal newspapers as required by law, setting a public hearing 2 weeks from tonight's meeting at 7:30 p.m. or soon thereafter as the matter may be reached. Before we go into unfinished business, Councilwoman McNamara joined the podium. If you'd like to report on your committee at this time.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Thank you for allowing me to arrive
absolutely.
late. My husband just drove into the city for the first time since last March, and getting back was quite a challenge. So As in terms of the Public Works Committee, they've been swamped. You know, they have their usual maintenance of our parks and our grounds throughout the borough. But I believe with the absence of Mr. Skelly, they've been quite busy handling his duties throughout Borough Hall and the PD, the gun range. It's always kind of exacerbated as people are taking their summer vacations as well, and down a couple men. But they're busy also continuing getting the road program ready, patching and trench work in Borough Park, catch basin work, valve work, patching potholes. I heard on the YouTube you reported the slide that was hit by the tree over at Emily Rice Park. They are, I believe, Greg, you also reported on the Well 6 program. The materials are slowly coming in. They'll have their work cut out for them there when everything's ready. They continue to do their water sampling. And we will be discussing in new business the ongoing issues over on Manhattan Avenue on the east side of Route 17 with their water challenges. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody have any unfinished business from the council? Yes.
Just, Craig, can you give us a little update on how we're doing on our parking lot acquisition?
We're trying. We, both Patrick and I have reached out. My understanding was we had worked out all the kinks in relation to the language of the purchase and sale agreement, as well as an easement that would be needed. We were just waiting for M&T's counsel to sign off on everything. I reach out to him about every week or every other week. Patrick even reached out to him last week, to one of the M&T guys last week. It's just been radio silence. So I'm going to try again tomorrow. I'm going to call him and send him another email and say what's going on. I thought we're pretty much ready to go because they were concerned about the construction timeline. And
Late in the season now, and-
we keep saying that we're ready to start getting the design completed so we can go out to bid, but we can't do that until we get
But
the
the
documents.
easement language is written, and in theory, they've at least agreed to that, or it's just sitting on their desk waiting for them to say it looks okay?
Correct. We proposed easement language. They came back with some changes. We agreed. They weren't material. They were perfect. So we sent it back to them
It
saying,
should be a John Hancock.
yeah.
Mayor, if I could add?
Sure.
The only thing to add is that they've given us no indication that they don't wish to sell the property. Right? They've given us no indication that they have issues with the amount for the tax settlement, that they don't like the easement, that they don't like the contract. So we believe that the only reason for the delay is their inability to prioritize this. So that's what Craig and I are looking to do. But we do still expect the sale of the property. You know, we would like it to have been done months ago. And for M&T, they've got a piece of property sitting in Waldwick that they don't use, but it's not really giving them much anyway. So they're just not incentivized yet. But we'll work on it.
Yeah, I think the guy we're dealing with is up in Buffalo or something like that. So I think that's just what it is. This just isn't a priority on his
Road trip,
desk.
Craig.
Any other old business? New business? Would the clerk kindly read resolution number 2021?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had it third, sorry. This is going to be resolution. Point?
243?
No. No. I think it's going to be 244. This is to accept a donation of the Unity Tree mural. Be it resolved that the municipal council of the borough of Waldwick hereby accepts a donation of the Unity Tree mural from the Bristol, 245 Wyckoff Ave, Waldwick, New Jersey, 07463.
Do we have a motion and a second? Motion by Don, second by Joe. On the question, what this is a couple of weeks ago, the activity director of the Bristol met with myself and Kelly, and then met with myself privately about they wanted to do something for the borough of Waldwick, uniting the elderly and the young together. Since the pandemic, a lot of people were separated, and they wanted to do something for the community. They wanted a wall to put a tree, a unity tree, and on the tree there are leaves. And the leaves were made by the Forum School kids and made by the residents of the Bristol. And they needed a wall to do it. And I looked at walls, we looked at different walls. Michael Torr came in with it. And the only wall that would be access to people to see would be on the pool well on Prospect Street. So if you drive down Prospect Street right before you come into near the Oval, you look to your right, and there is a tree there now. The town was very generous enough to paint the wall. The town was very generous to fix the wall that was damaged by landscaping, and then there was a young woman from Ramapo College, who was an art major, who designed the tree and who put everything together. And what it is a donation to the town, and it is uniting, as I said, it's a unity tree uniting the young and old. At a later date, there'll be a ceremony to unveil it, which is already out there, so you could see it. But due to different circumstances, it's hard to get seniors and young kids all together to do a ceremony. There's a lot of logistics involved. The area in which the tree is at, to get seniors in wheelchairs, it's all gravel, so it's going to be a little hard. So we're still working on that. We've been in communications with the Bristol, and yesterday we met with the chief administrator there. We spoke with their advertising, marketing people. We spoke with the head of the Bristol Corporation from Long Island, and they're all excited and happy that Waldwick allowed them to put this unity tree for the borough wall. Anyone else have a question on this? If not, Clerk Conley, take the roll.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Mrs. McNamara?
Yes.
Mr. Orovitz?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Shalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, introduction of an ordinance. This is a new ordinance that just came in. Would the clerk kindly read ordinance number 2021-23?
Actually, Mayor, I would like to do the resolution first. That's the
Okay.
way we do it. So this is the adoption,
Okay.
the amendment to the 2021 budget.
Okay. Do we have a motion and a second to amend it? Motion by Don, second by Paul. On the question? Anyone?
Thank you, Mayor. So this resolution amending the six-year capital budget and the following ordinance for water capital ordinance is for a project on Manhattan Avenue between Route 17 and Hudson Avenue. That portion of the water main is a dead end. It flows from Hudson Avenue up towards Route 17. It dead ends at the last home on Route 17. We have been getting complaints for quite a while now from residents in that stretch about discolored water. We have tried everything typical that would clear that up. So normally it's hydrant flushing. We had done that, didn't work. Did it on an accelerated basis, didn't work. We then tried to replace some of the service lines that we thought might be causing issues, didn't work. So now we're at a point where we have a portion of pipe that we took out of there when we replaced some of those water mains, and you can tell that there's some buildup on the inside of that pipe. So it's difficult because you're never 100% certain, but our estimate is that that buildup on the inside of the pipe that will run the full length of that leg, again, dead end leg, is what's contributing to the sediment going into those homes. And so this provides the funding for that project. The reason why this is a recent addition to the agenda, we were surprised to find that we've gotten some quotes on the project that they were below the bid threshold. And so we're able to move on the project quicker than we had anticipated, quicker than if it's above the bid threshold, you're working with an engineer and you're bidding it out. But we're able to move on it pretty quickly, so we wanted to get this before the mayor and council as quickly as we could. The money being appropriated or approved in the introduction of this ordinance comes from the water department's capital surplus account. So it doesn't appropriate any new money that requires rates to be raised, and this is money basically that's in an account for our use, and it just needs to be appropriated for this use. So there's, you can see under the section there, section 1 on the second page of the ordinance, the full appropriate estimated cost is $49,000. We actually believe it's going to be a little less, but we have that money, so we can appropriate it and cancel what we don't use. $14,500 is coming from the Water Capital Improvement Fund, and $34,500 is coming from the Water Capital Fund balance. At the conclusion of the project, we'll be back before the mayor and council with a resolution to cancel any unspent portions of this bond ordinance. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question? Not, clerk, kindly take the roll.
I have a
Greg
couple
does.
questions. Is this going to be remove and replace and recreate a dead end, or are they going to put a loop in?
It's remove, replace, no loop. We had discussed with our water engineer a loop. There's kind of two options for a loop. On that street, we could do like a lollipop loop that goes up and just kind of circles around right there at the dead end. Our engineer said while it may help, it's not going to help to the extent that it's worth paying the extra for. You could also go up one side of the street and back down the other side of the street. Again, our engineer said, it's always going to be a dead end. You're not going to, the use on that road isn't going to really encourage enough circulation to where it is, at least in this instance, worthwhile.
And just, we know the life expectancy of the replacement, because obviously eventually it's just going to have to be done again, but it could be 40 years from now, that's fine, or?
Yeah, the majority of our water system is over 40 years old, and the pipes are still intact. You hope that a water system lasts 100 and some odd years, in the low hundreds, I'd say. Some fail earlier than others. There's different material that we use had used at different times. So some of that, material just fails at different rates. I think, just trying to figure out why this is different than the other areas in town, because to have a dead end isn't uncommon in Waldwick. We have a lot of them, but this is acting in a different way. So it might be the material of the pipe, it might be the pitch of that street, which is quite steep.
Settlement or bow in the pipe.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. What we do know is we have a problem, and this is our what we believe is our best opportunity for a permanent fix.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk, kindly take the roll, please.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Mrs. McNamara?
Yes.
Mr. Orbit?
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf? Mr. Shalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Now, will the clerk kindly read ordinance number 2021-22?
Sure. Ordinance number 2021-23, Water Capital Ordinance of the Borough of Waldwick and the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, appropriating the sum of $49,000, authorizing water infrastructure improvements to be made in the vicinity of Manhattan Avenue in the borough, appropriating therefore the sum of $14,500 to be funded through the Water Capital Improvement Fund and $34,500 to be funded through the Water Capital Fund balance.
A motion and a second is in order to move and pass this ordinance on first reading, and that the clerk be authorized to advertise it in local legal newspapers as required by law, setting a public hearing on this ordinance at 7:30 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be reached on Tuesday, August 17, 2021. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion by Greg, second by Nicole. Anyone have a question on it? If not, clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Mrs. McNamara?
Yes.
Mr. Orbit?
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf?
Yes.
Mr. Shalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else on the council have any new business before we open it up to the public? If not, anyone from the public would like to comment on anything or say anything to us, please be nice. Come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Yes, Mr. Alba, waiting for you.
First of all, I'd
Well,
like,
excuse me, your name, please.
Albert P. Colden,
Are you related to Al?
34 Dante Place, Waldwick, New Jersey, 07463.
Thank you, Albert.
I'd like to wish Mr. Patrick Weary a happy birthday. And now you can wish me because I'm next week. But the reason I wanted to ask, pardon? Well, we're getting close. When will it be safe for the seniors to drink that water? Now, is it safe to drink water now, or the well that was the problem is shut down? Is that well 6?
Sure. The best thing to do, or an answer to that, because it's complicated, I'll give you a short one in a minute, but the best thing to do is go to the borough's website. If you go under departments, water department,
Yeah.
you'll see a link for PFOA, PFOS, PFNA, it might say PFAS, If you click in there, you're going to see the public notices that we put out, and you're going to see the slide presentation from the presentation we had here earlier this year, and you'll have the recording from that. It's a lot of information, but I'll speak generally. Well 6 had triggered an exceedance of the DEP's running annual average for one of the PFAS compounds. And that exceedance required us to provide a public notice regarding that exceedance. It didn't require us to shut the well down, but it did require that we come into compliance with the running annual average within 1 year time. The borough was fortunate that we operate off of 6 wells, and so we were able to shut this well off and still maintain the system while seeking to install a treatment for PFAS at this well. So specific to this exceedance of the running annual average, that well has been taken out of service and it won't be brought back into service until an appropriate treatment is in place, which has been delayed due to material shortages related to COVID, but nonetheless we expect will be soon. The bigger issue about PFAS in our water system still remains in that there are the other 5 wells that are still in operation. The majority, if not all of them, still do exceed the running annual average for the single test, I should say. They exceed the single test for a PFAS compound. They don't exceed the running annual average because the running annual average is based off of 4 quarters of testing, and so we haven't had 4 quarters of testing, so we benefit, in a sense, from not having exceeded it yet. But the levels, the quarterly testing levels do exceed the DEP's maximum contaminant level. So there still is some concern about the water. The DEP is very specific on their guidance, and it's included in those notices, so you should read it. But generally, you should be concerned if you're breastfeeding, if you're pregnant, if you're giving it to an infant, if you are immunocompromised, if you know, there's specific, very specific health issues where you might want to be concerned. And if you fall into any of those categories, they always tell you to consult your physician, because the Borough of Waldwick, we're responsible to the DEP and to the residents for running our water system, but when it comes to the health of any effects from that, it's really an issue that you should take up with your doctor because it's very specific to you. I hope that long answer
well,
question.
I did get a letter from the town, and in that letter it said, if you're a senior, don't drink the water. Well, my wife's seen that, and we're probably partners now in a bottled water company. I mean, she don't want me to drink it because that letter said seniors shouldn't be drinking it.
Yeah.
But
The same compounds are also found in many of the bottled waters on the market today.
I agree.
You go on a
agree.
website and lists all the bottled waters that are on the market in the United States. And the same compounds that Patrick is talking about are present in almost all of those waters.
Maybe more, because they don't have to do as much testing as our town does.
People think they're escaping this by using bottled water. It's not true. It's just not true.
I'll bring my wife to the next meeting.
I would first encourage her to look at the documents that are up on the borough's website, because it is very
Okay.
informative. And in that presentation that we had made to the public, we had a water engineer, we had a hydrologist, people who are very familiar with these issues and how they affect residents speaking there. So I'd encourage you to look for that. And you had mentioned the notice that you received. All residents in the borough will continue to receive quarterly notices until this problem is rectified. So everyone can expect to receive notices until at least the spring of next year, which is when we expect to summer when we expect to finish the treatment project
But-
for all wells.
But someday, we may get pure water again. Hopefully.
We are working towards a solution for
Good.
filtering this out. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're
You
very,
want-
very knowledgeable.
Thank you. That's why we hired you.
Only on my birthday.
Yeah, he's only smiling on his birthday, Al.
One day a year.
Ramundo, 83 Highwood Ave. I have a question regarding the deadhead on Lincoln Ave. Does deadhead have a hydrant at the top of where the deadhead is?
On Manhattan Ave.
On Manhattan Ave.
It does, and we flush that hydrant.
And we still have issues with sediment?
Yeah.
Is there any way that they could dedicate a larger line to improve that? Or increase the frequency on a PM schedule?
Well, I mean, it's certainly something we could discuss with our engineer, and we have discussed this with our water engineer, so, you know, we know our own limitations, and, you know, we've consulted with our engineer on it. A larger line, I guess my concern first would be if you have a larger line, you don't get as much force of flow through the line. So I'd be concerned that maybe, or I'd want to speak to my engineer about with more sediment.
Yeah, it might make it worse.
Yeah, it might make it worse. You know, if you have a large line, you know, you have an 8-inch main, but, you know, you're only really using 2 inches of water flowing through there. Well, you know, what accumulates? But it's an option. We can ask.
That's it.
No harm in asking.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Bianca Morosi, 135 Nordham. Sorry, but I have like memory issues tonight. I'm so tired. So one of the things I just wanted to bring up was my daughter was one of those kids that got to do the police academy. And I know I sent an email right away, but it was a wonderful experience. I think, one, you know, the kids got to see not only what the police officers are doing in town, but also what they're capable of doing outside of your daily, you know, going about. My daughter, for one, wants to be a veterinarian, and she came back going, oh my God, there's a canine unit. And I think that's a really big thing for them because a lot of adults never got that experience. I didn't, so I wanted to say thank you so much. The second thing is when I arrived, I noticed the parking spaces were non-existent, and I was wondering if perhaps that could be looked at. I think the restaurant next door is using that parking spaces. So I don't know, just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, we've had a problem with that restaurant for a very long time, and we constantly go there and talk to him about it, and he claims none of his people are here. Meanwhile, when we have nothing going on and the parking lot's packed, it is his people. But what we'll do is we'll have our police go back there and tell him that he cannot use our lot.
No,
I mean, it's been an issue for a while, and, you know.
Especially when they see people starting to come into here, it's kind of like, well, no, at that point, go
No,
somewhere else.
I'll have our police department reach out.
And the other thing that I just wanted to bring up, my kids were at a soccer practice the other day at Veterans Park, and a few children were stung by wasps. So I was just wondering if maybe the DPW can go take a look. That was a little bit terrifying for young children.
Was it under the gazebo, under the pavilion?
I think it was by the tire swing area. There was a boys' practice, and a bunch of 7- and 8-year-olds got
I know there
stung.
was some bees at the, some wasps at the, underneath the pavilion.
They were in the playground area at the time.
The what?
They were in the playground area at the time, yeah.
At Veterans?
Veterans.
Veterans.
Oh,
At Veterans.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said Borough Park.
No, it's veterans this time, yeah.
Okay,
So, that's it. Thank you.
Patrick, go take care of that. Anyone else?
Hi, Mary Beth Nappy, 99 Manhattan Avenue. And I just want to thank the mayor and the council for the grad ball parade for the seniors this year. They really loved it, and just wanted to thank you. It was I can't think of a better word, crappy year for them. So it was something they all looked forward to. They decorated their cars, and they really had a great time. And they got a kick out of the mayor directing traffic, making everybody going out. They're like, oh, it's the mayor, and he's like directing traffic.
I didn't get
But-
paid for it either.
No, exactly. But I just wanted to thank everybody. They really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to go into close?
So moved.
Motion by Joe, second by Don. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? We'll be out of close within an hour. If you don't want to wait, you'll find out